Hi, this is Greg Franklin, Superintendent of the Tustin Unified School District, and I'm pleased to share this TUSD Connect update with you. TUSD Connect is our instructional initiative that has begun in the 2013-14 school year that really encompasses three areas. First is technology, the second is the Common Core state standards, and third are instructional strategies. I'm going to touch on each of those areas briefly in the following presentation. First of all, we want to thank our voters and community members for supporting Measure S. It's our technology bond. It'll raise $135 million over the course of the next 30 years. That was passed in November 2012. Already, 850 classrooms in the district, that is all of our classrooms, have had upgraded instructional technology, including projectors, new teacher computers, voice amplification systems, Apple TV, and document cameras. Secondly, we've upgraded our infrastructure. We're adding a lot of new computers onto the network, which requires more memory, more backup, redundant power, redundant cooling, and that work is already completed. Third, we have already also completed the 3-to-1 iPad rollout in grades transitional kinder through 4th. Every school, every elementary school, all 18, now have computers for the use of those students. At grades 5 through 8, we're rolling out 1-to-1 iPads. These iPads will be checked out to students, and students will be able to take them home similarly to textbook. At the high school level, we'll be purchasing 1-to-1 devices. That process is ongoing, and we're currently in a pilot test mode. The Common Core standards, there's been a lot of talk, both in the popular media as well as educational journals and conferences, about this new set of standards that 47 states have adopted. Thus, they're the Common Core across the nation. The 80% of the standards are the same in the Common Core as California had. California had a very rigorous set of standards. But that 20% difference makes a pretty big difference. And so rather than talk about the entire set of standards, I just want to talk briefly about some of the shifts that you'll see as we move to the new standards. First, in language arts, there'll be a focus on building knowledge through content-rich, nonfiction, and informational texts. We'll, of course, still be studying literature, especially at the high school level. We'll continue to study Steinbeck and Shakespeare, but we'll be focusing much more also on students' ability to read and write informational texts. We find that at the college level, this is really the skill that is in demand. Secondly, reading and writing will be grounded in evidence from texts. Again, this is not new, but hasn't always been required of every student, and that is one of the shifts, that all students should be able to do that well. And finally, practice with complex text and building an academic vocabulary. On math side of things, there are shifts. One is to a more reliance on a conceptual understanding and seeing math not just as a set of procedures, but really as a process to be able to solve problems. So on this conceptual understanding, a great deal of time will be spent at the elementary level building that understanding up for future use. Secondly, procedural skills, developing flexibility and fluency with the procedures to know when and how to use math skills. Not just enough to be able to solve for X, but understand when and where you would use particular equations. And then finally, applying math in the context outside of the classroom, actually using math to solve real-world problems. In math, there are really three paths under the new Common Core. The traditional path at the bottom of the screen is the new standard, and that would be Math 6, Math 7, and Math 8 in grades 6, 7, and 8. And then finally, they would get to Algebra 1 in the 9th grade year. The Algebra 1 under the new Common Core Content Standards is a very rigorous class that includes some geometry, algebra 2, and even a little bit of trigonometry. And so the thinking is the students need a stronger foundation in Math 6 through 8 in order to be able to tackle this higher order algebra. One of our goals in TUSD is that all students will take 4 years of math, because it's very difficult to go to college and then take a math placement exam if you have not been in a math class your senior year and maybe not even your junior year. So if you're a standard student taking the standard path of math, your final senior year, you could enroll in pre-calculus, finite math, or advanced placement statistics, all very rigorous courses. The second path, the middle path, is an accelerated course where students will take Math 6 and 7 and 8 in their 6th and 7th grade year. So in essence, they'll be studying a year and a half's worth of math in each grade 6 and 7, then taking Algebra 1, the new rigorous Algebra 1 course, in the 8th grade year. That would allow students to get to AP Statistics, Applied Calculus, AP Calculus, and IB Math in their senior years. Then finally, there's a super accelerated path that is available for very rare and few students who would take Algebra 1 their 8th grade year, Geometry in the summer, and then take Algebra 2 through an AP course their senior year. What you should see in your classrooms based on these shifts is more nonfiction reading, more writing, using evidence from text to support thinking, building that strong academic vocabulary, and teachers attending to the student thinking, not just getting the answer. You'll hear students explaining their thinking more often, and you should see applications of learning to real-world problems. There are several reasons for these shifts, maybe most of all economic reasons. Tom Clifton, in his book called The Coming Jobs War, talks about the problem with engagement of the American workforce. Mr. Clifton is the president of the Gallup organization that does the polling, and in their observations of elementary schools throughout the country, only 80% of elementary students are actively engaged in their schooling. Disturbingly, only 60% of middle school students are engaged, and about 40% of high school students are engaged. This alarms educators, but even more so, the fact that only 28% of America's workforce is actively engaged alarms everybody. According to Mr. Clifton and other economists, increasing Americans' workforce in their work will greatly benefit the economy as a whole. In TUSD, we believe that in combination with engaging instructional strategies, the incorporation of technology, and the Common Core standards, we can increase our students' engagement level. There's also geopolitical reasons for these shifts. There are 7 billion people on the earth, 5 billion are 15 years or older. 3 billion of those people say that they want good jobs, which they define as full-time and making a living wage. The problem is that only 1.2 billion of those jobs exist today. We believe in Tustin, our students need to be able to compete for those jobs with those students from around the world, and maybe even be the ones to create jobs, learning these project management skills, problem solving, so that they might be the ones who start companies and provide the entrepreneurial spirit to lead America forward. Everybody has played with a kaleidoscope as a young person, and Shoshana Zuboff, in her book, In the Age of the Smart Machine, has a quote: "Imagine a hand nudging the kaleidoscope's rim until hundreds of angles collapse, merge, and separate to form a new design. A fundamental change in an organization's technology infrastructure wields the power of the hand at the turning of the rim." We've certainly seen that true in education and now in Tustin Unified Schools, that we certainly have new technology, and so we're looking for those new ways of dealing with the world with those new tools. until we see a new pattern emerge from our kaleidoscope. What can you do for your TUSD student? Here's a simple list of activities, particularly reading, asking students why, and exploring their thinking, asking them to prove or explain their answers or concepts based on what they've read, as well as some additional resources if you're interested in reading more about the Common Core standards. We appreciate you taking the time to get this update, and Tustin Unified is off and running in all three of those areas: the Common Core standards, the instructional technology, and engaging instructional practices. Go TUSD.